Welcome to all of our viewers worldwide to Wednesday's edition of CNN Student News. I'm Carl Azus. First up, voting booths opened yesterday in Syria, a Middle Eastern country torn apart by civil war. Its current president, Bashar al-Assad, is expected to win easily. The Syrian government says the vote shows the nation is moving forward despite 3 years of fighting. But the U.S., which opposes al-Assad's government, says it's difficult, if not impossible, for Syria to have free and fair elections. Voting is taking place only in areas controlled by the Syrian government. Some parts of northern and eastern Syria are controlled by the rebels fighting it. An expert in international relations says the purpose of this election is to further solidify al-Assad's position as president, to make it clear he's not going anywhere. The United Nations says the election will make it harder for Syria to find the political solution it needs. Around 150,000 people have died in Syria's civil war. 6.5 million have had to leave their homes. Well, officially it's called People's Republic of China, but its government type is a communist state. This means the government has broad control over China's economy, the media, and the Communist Party makes China's laws. That's why the Tiananmen Square incident isn't publicly talked about in China today. But when it happened 25 years ago, it involved around 1 million protesters and was widely broadcast in other countries. After 10 years of economic growth and growing knowledge of other nations' ways of life, a massive group of Chinese students protested, demanding more democracy in China. Some risked their lives to do it. The government's ultimate response became an infamous chapter in the country's history.
In 1989, thousands of student activists believed they would change China. And during one euphoric summer on Tiananmen Square, many thought they could. Then the Communist Party ordered the crackdown. And the soldiers mobilized, crushing the democracy movement. I was there, says this woman. It was chaotic. They had guns and shooting. Bang, 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 all night it went. There was fighting everywhere. There were bullet holes right in these walls, says this witness. It was a night of fear and for many of shame. Everyone thought they should not have opened fire, he says. Why did they open fire? Back then, the party defended its crackdown. But now those questions are left unanswered, and no one is allowed to speak of the massacre. So before long, the police track us and shut us down. We both know why you can't come here right now, he tells me. The democracy movement started long before June 4th, and this place, Beijing University, was where the discussions started and the ideas started forming for the students to protest. Does the date June 4th mean anything to you, we ask? What is it, a national holiday, she says? No. No, I haven't, he says. Many young people in China have never heard of June 4th, but fresh from graduation, this student says some do talk about the massacre in private.
I think it's a little bit sensitive.
Because you never know who could be listening, she says. Have people forgotten history here?
No. People don't forgotten history, but I should say in China, people are really tolerant. People know that things happen, and we need to focus on the future.
In a way, the future looks like this. Throngs of tourists streaming every day onto Tiananmen Square. It seems like the blackout of history is almost complete. Because the party wants to make sure that this never happens again. David Mackenzie, CNN Beijing.
From China, we're taking you to Poland. President Obama arrived in that country's capital yesterday. It's part of a 4-day trip to Europe that will take the president to 3 countries. He met with Poland's president and promised to increase support for America's allies in Europe. That includes Poland. President Obama asked Congress for $1 billion. That money would go to increased military training exercises for U.S. allies near Russia's borders. The U.S. and Russia have been at odds over the crisis in Ukraine. Critics have accused the Obama administration of having weak international leadership. The president's hoping this trip will help cement his position on the world stage.
Time for the shout out. What is the federal minimum wage in the U.S.? If you think you know it, shout it out. Is it $5.15, $6.55, $7.25, or $10.10 per hour? You've got 3 seconds. Go. Since 2009, the U.S. federal minimum wage has been $7.25 per hour. That's your answer, and that's your shout out.
President Obama's been pushing for a minimum wage increase. He wants it to be $10.10 an hour. But Congress has to pass the law that would do that, and Democrats and Republicans are divided on the issue. The Congressional Budget Office, which gives nonpartisan analyses of economic issues, says raising the minimum wage to $10.10 would mean higher wages for 16.5 million Americans. But it also says the bad effects would balance out the good. Prices on many goods and services would go up, businesses would lose money, and an estimated 500,000 Americans would lose their jobs. States and cities can set their own minimum wages as long as they're equal to or higher than the federal minimum. Seattle, Washington just became the city with the highest minimum wage in America, $15 an hour. Economists aren't sure yet of the long-term effects this will have, but some business leaders caution that the law was passed during a booming economy for Seattle. If that doesn't last, they say their ability to pay higher wages may not either. From Northern Europe to Southern Africa, it's Worldwide Wednesday on the CNN Student News Roll Call in Brunsum, Netherlands. It's great to see our viewers at the Af-North International School. Thank you for watching. In Mons, Belgium, hello to the students of Shape High School, a Department of Defense education facility. And in Kazembe, Zambia, shout out to everyone at St. John Bosco School. We're happy to be part of your school day. A psychologist at the University of Chicago estimates that about 40% of Americans are lonely. That rate has doubled since the 1980s, even though tens of millions more people live here now. Ways to fight loneliness include volunteering, a new hobby, getting active in church, reaching out to another lonely person. But if loneliness is common, why address it at all?
This will shock you, just how much of an impact being lonely can have on your health. What they have found now in a few different studies is that it's on par with being a smoker. It increases your risk of real diseases like heart disease, like diabetes. So we think about loneliness in this abstract sense, but the health effects are very objective and very real. As a neuroscientist, I was so interested in this idea that we know where pain resides in the brain, and what we now know is that people who are chronically lonely, they have higher activity in that pain part of the brain. So even though it's loneliness, it can register as physical pain. Having friends really does seem to keep people healthy. The simple act of being social, we find people's immune systems actually perform better. Simply saying hello can make the person who gets that greeting live longer. The evidence is pretty clear on this. And we're starting to get more and more evidence that you yourself, by saying hello, it's so empowering that could actually do wonders for your health as well.
Getting married has often been characterized as taking the plunge. At a recent event in Minnesota, it was literally a plunge. A few bridesmaids made it off the dock okay. The rest of the party, well, they'll never forget this wedding. In defense of the dock, the party was huge. 22 people in dresses and tuxes. And even though most of them had to dry off afterward, the ceremony only started 10 minutes late. Despite the fact that they all missed the boat, well, they say marriage is a sink or swim undertaking, and there's a good sign, this one will hold water. I'm Carl Azus, and if you ask me if I want to do this again tomorrow, I do, and I propose you join us on CNN Student News.